Hi, I'm Tiffany, and welcome to Towering TBR. I have been reading a ton of frontlist books that came out this year. I want to let you know which ones I think you should pick up and which ones I think you should maybe avoid. In today's video, I'm going to be focusing solely on new releases in the sci-fi and fantasy genres, but I am planning a part 2, so don't forget to subscribe so that you can see that. That one will talk about frontlist books that are in other genres, primarily mystery and nonfiction. If you're new, I get frequent migraines which disturb my vision, and I use audiobooks to accommodate. And I will give you the lowdown on whether or not you should pick up the audiobook as well. Okay, so the first book is called The Apprentices by Jacob North. This is a middle grade queer fantasy. So this was an incredibly fun polar fantasy from the perspective of a trans child. The child was a foundling. They don't know where he came from, and someone had to take him in, and he is viewed as kind of a taker. Like, he hasn't contributed anything to society, and so because of that has quite a lowly status. He has a chance to go to a magical school, learn some sort of trade, and finally be able to contribute to society. The story itself was quite enjoyable, but there is a lot of spoon feeding to the audience, a lot of shouting out people's motivations. While some children's literature can transcend audience and work for kids and adults alike, I don't think this one does. I think that this is still a good book for kids, but I don't necessarily recommend it to an adult reader. The next new release is called The Incandescent by Emily Tesh. This is a dark academia with magic and demons. I will say that this audiobook is acceptable, which means I didn't think it added anything to the story, but except for getting me access to the story. So if you don't need audiobooks, I don't necessarily recommend this audiobook. So we follow a witchy headmistress. She has so much on her plate. She is teaching students, she's dealing with parents, she's dealing with fundraising, and frequently checking the wards to keep out demons. They are obviously quite attracted to all of the magic at the school, and so she has to remain vigilant. The school also hires enforcers to keep the demons at bay, and it is the headmistress relationship with one of the enforcers that kind of make up the romance. This is billed as a sapphic romance, but I'm gonna say the romance is pretty light. It's much more dark academia fantasy stuff. It is also enemies to lovers, which is not my favorite trope. I think it worked with her attitude towards the enforcers. This was a good popcorn read. I was enthralled at the time of reading it, but now that it's been a while, it's faded quite a lot. The Dream Hotel by Laila Lalami. Honestly, it's creepily prescient, this book, and where the United States could be going. In this world, anything can lower your score. What you think, what you do, even what you dream can lower your score. And once your score gets low enough, they can detain you in essentially a prison, although they don't call it that. So basically, our main character gets detained before she does any kind of crime, and it's only supposed to be for 2 weeks. Just write it out, make sure you're not a danger, and then you get released. But of course, this is a for-profit prison, and the jailers are cruel and aggressive and do anything that they can to lengthen the detainee's stay. If they protest, they get disproportionate amounts of time added to their sentence. If they refuse to work, they are also detained longer. They also have other punishments like revoking access to visitors or to the commissary. It drew some very clear parallels with other dystopian books, specifically 1984, and it made me fear that this future is not that far off. It is definitely not for the faint of heart. Murder by Memory by Olivia Waite is a sci-fi mystery novella. This story is about a generation ship, and they are on their very, very long journey to find a place for people to live. However, because it's such a long time, they don't have to stay conscious the whole time. They can upload their consciousness into a library and basically skip parts of time, basically kind of in a sleep mode. The detective is awoken suddenly and not in her own body. She has to figure out how someone was murdered. While the mystery was fulfilling, albeit quite short, I really liked the world building for this novella. There was quite a bit. And as a person with chronic pain, I really liked the idea of being able to download my consciousness into a body that works. I thought that this was really good. I wish it had been longer, but I still definitely recommend. Okay, we are getting down to my 3 favorites, and all 3 audiobooks were really great. The first is A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. So in this second book, we get Anna and Den, who are our Sherlock and Watson duo, as they are tasked to solve another mystery within a walled city that keeps out the Leviathans. We get to learn more about the Leviathans, which I loved. We learn more about Anna and Den themselves, and the mystery was incredibly complex, but not in a way that was like confusing, but rather just incredibly, you didn't know where it was going to go next, and I think that made it all the more thrilling. For me, it narrowly missed being a 5-star, but it has ignited a huge excitement in the mystery fantasy genre blend. And if you have any to recommend in that genre blend, definitely let me know. Next is Silverborn by Jessica Townsend. This is the 4th book in the Nevermore series, which is a middle grade whimsical fantasy series. So because it's the 4th in a series, I can't tell you much about the plot, but we learn more about Nevermore, this magical city. We learn more about Morgan Crow's friends. I now have a new favorite character in Nevermore. It used to be Fen, the magic talking cat, but now I think Cadence is my favorite. Cadence is one of Morgan's friends, and when there is a murder, she decides that they are going to solve it. Yes, Detective Cadence was just such a fun character. I loved her. So we find out more about the city, we find out more about Morgan's unit, and we find out more about some mysteries that were laid earlier in the books. I will say that Morgan is 14 in this book and does get a bit angsty, which I think kind of created some miscommunication things that if you would just communicate clearly, it would have been fine. It wouldn't have blown up so much. Of course, 14-year-olds are going to be angsty. That's just how it is. I really enjoyed this. I think I had this pre-ordered for nearly 3.5 years, and I'm really hoping we don't have to wait that long for book 5. Lastly, I'm going to talk about The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. This is an epic fantasy with a competition for the throne. The emperor is nearing his 24 years in office, and it is time to pick a new emperor. There are 8 different houses that are represented by animal gods, and which endow the different people with different abilities and skills. And the night before the competition, the Raven contestant Gaida is murdered, and the Raven scholar Nima is tasked by the current emperor to not only solve her crime, but also to take her place in the competition. This had tons of political intrigue, lots of world building, and some morally gray characters. I am already excited for book 2, even though we don't have a date for it yet. I did do a single book review, so if you'd like to hear a little bit more, I will link it in case you missed it. So I have read some excellent science fiction and fantasy new releases. What has been your favorite new release this year? Are you planning to pick up any of the books I talked about? Let's have a chat down in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.